Boulogne here with me today. Hi, Pat.
Hi, pleasure to meet you. I am so happy to be here, and I'm energized.
You are.
We'll have fun.
I can feel it through the screen. It's so great. So, you have a wide variety of background, which I'm so impressed with: high performance mastery, mentor, chiropractor, lifestyle medicine, sports chiro. My goodness. And now, Dr. Pat, you are an executive lifestyle strategist. Can you just share with me what is it that you help your clients do?
I help my clients reach their greatest goals in less time, and how I do that is by um, analyzing or finding what their baseline is for their mindset.
Mm,
So that they can and have mindset mastery. Because when you have mindset mastery, you can handle other wellness initiatives like exercise, diet, and sleep, and those kind of things, so that you can have even more consistent outcomes, because you will be so strong that you'll have peace of mind 24/7.
Peace of mind 24/7. So what is an important piece of mindset to have peace of mind 24/7? Tell me about that.
Well, a lot of times people always look at, like, why they keep on hitting the wall, and they're
Mm,
not successful at things. And there's a pattern, whether or not, it's something. It could be different events, but it's the same pattern. So if you
mhm,
can identify what the pattern is and go back to when it happened and what the source is, and the emotional attachment, or where that's anchored at in the body, you can have this absolute transformation of moving forward from that stuckness into freedom.
mm,
And sometimes it happens in one session. Sometimes for people, they're textured, and they require a lot more, back and forth and digging, because they had really, convoluted childhood, and they had
mhm,
things that happened to them, that, maybe something that they never even told their parents that happened to them,
mm,
that they bury. And whether or not it's good or bad, it's just like that. When certain circumstances in your life set up again and again, you physically have a physiological reaction to that, and it goes back to the same pattern, for your internal makeup. So
mm.
if you can change the mindset and anchor the mindset, so that you have a base that's so strong, then nothing can disturb your peace of mind. I mean,
Wow.
that's the idea of it, and peace of mind is priceless, for
Yes.
sure, and so is your health, and so is your mind. Wherever your body goes, your mind follows, and when
Wow.
it's just, so they go along for the whole ride. So
Mhm,
you can't take one off and leave it, someplace else. So it's really important to get those things in sync, and it's
mm,
also a lot of times when people aren't in sync, what they end up doing is they don't know where to spend their time, their energy, or their money, which
mm,
is why when I wrote my book, because you have to have the base part of the health. So when
yeah.
I wrote the book, Why Are You Sick, Fat, and Tired, which
Mm,
is a book of questions that leads you to an end result of knowing where to start your health and where to pay attention to. It also works as a workbook, guidebook, and an advocating tool, so you can ask real questions in your 15 minutes that you have with your medical doctor.
mm,
And so you're not, all of a sudden you're walking out of there and your spouse is asking, "So how was your visit day?" And you go, like, "It was good. He said things were good." And, and when in reality, you had no clue what he was talking about, or she was
yeah.
talking about, as far as your results, or the PA called you up, to say, "Oh, your blood work's good." I want to know in blood work, for instance,
Mhm,
I want to see normals, but I want to see normal, because you can have a high normal or a low normal. If you have something that's trending from over a period of time, from a normal going high or normal going low, it can affect your health long term. It can affect in how you become or not become a burden to yourself and your family and other loved
mhm.
ones. Indoor society, there, to tons of millions of dollars that people spend on health is misdirected in those cases, because you're not looking at what the cause of the problem is. So
Yes.
if you, it's bigger than that. It's bigger. You got to take a look at the mind. You got to take a look at, the physical, mental, emotionally, spiritual, and social, so that you can make better financial decisions, and you can make better decisions in all aspects of your life.
I love that. And
That
so
that's cool.
I've got a question, Dr. Pat. I've got to jump in because I've got a question burning. So let's say you're working with someone who has a lot of stress and worry, a lot of mindset stuff coming up around that blood work. How are you coaching them to, um, you know, get through that time of stress around what the numbers are and once they've received the numbers?
So that they're looking at their blood results, right? Well,
Yeah.
first of all, I would tell them to go get the one beforehand,
Mhm.
and compare those numbers. Because if they're being stationary, a lot of times those numbers that are in normal can actually be normal, but you're
Mhm.
looking for what trends.
Right.
It's like when your car first goes out of alignment, you don't say, "Oh, my car's out of alignment," because you know it, not unless you're an intuitive healer or something,
Mhm.
an intuitive car person, repair person. But, and you wouldn't necessarily correct it at that time. If it went
Mm.
out a little bit, you wouldn't even notice it. How you notice it is by the wear and tear on the tires.
Mhm.
But that wear and tear doesn't automatically show up like the first day it's out of alignment. It shows up over a period of time. So what
Right.
you're looking for are signs and symptoms that you have that you might say, "Oh, I hope that goes away. Oh, my best friend had that. So, like, and nothing happened to her, so I don't have anything to worry about." Or it's okay if I eat sugar. Sugar is, in research wise, tells you it's the major cause of inflammation in the American diet.
Mhm.
Why are we number 35 or 37, something like that, on the health scale in the whole world? There's other people who are way ahead of us, and it's just like and we all have one thing in common that we can do, whether you're there or whether you're here, is by what goes in your mouth. And
Yeah.
by asking specific questions about what it is that you put in your mouth. Is this feeding a disease or is this feeding my health? And if it's feeding a
Mhm.
disease, why in the heck would you ever eat it? I mean, it doesn't,
Yeah.
that makes no sense to me, for that. So, the question is, are you willing to do whatever it takes to be healthy,
Mhm.
and have the right mindset so that you can get unstuck and keep on moving forward in your health and all aspects of your life, especially your wellness. Your hand should be up, like it should be waving way up there and saying, yes, it is. And I'm willing to invest in it.
Mhm. Mhm. So for these people who feel stressed about their blood work, for example, are there specific mindset things that you would do with those people?
I would first look at what their mindset is.
Mhm.
Because I have a cartoon of, two lines. One is the alternative healthy eating line, which is empty, and the other one is like got scared, have this medical thing going on. So I'm now over in that line because I want to do surgery because I want to get rid of it. But the
Mm.
problem is that you've got to understand the mechanism of the body and how it works. The body is created to heal itself if you have the right components in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
If you don't, then you gotta figure out, well, where's my weakest link? What
Mhm.
can I do to fix my weakest link or keep an eye on it? And that's what the book of questions says. Why are you sick, fat, and tired? And that international bestseller, that's why that's there, you know, is so that you can go and you can check in with yourself on a regular basis. I never advise, even though it's on sale digitally, as it's cheaper, but it's much better to have that book in hand than it is
Mhm.
for you to have that book, on digital because you'll forget about it. But in
Yes.
front of you, you'll go like, "Oh, I'm gonna do this on, April 1st. I'm gonna do this on August 1st, and I'm gonna do this on December 1st," whatever the days that you pick. And I'm gonna go back in and I'm gonna check out what those answers are because I wanna know if there's a fire I can put out or a fire that's starting to, a kindle like kindling wood sometimes can burn a whole house down. And people are like,
Mhm.
I don't know what happened. We thought the fire was out, right? But it burned the
Yeah.
whole house down, and it's the same thing with your health. So you want to take a look at what is it that might be, lingering underneath the surface. And we saw that in COVID when people
Yeah.
came down or not COVID, the pandemic, because COVID is a virus, it's not a
Mhm.
disease. And
Mhm.
so when people had those reactions, and a lot of people died, is because I always said for the last 10 years, especially since 2010, that there's a lot of sick people around and they don't know it.
Yeah.
And they'd only know is when they have a crisis. And there's a study that, I retired for a while, and the study that like was really like irritated me the most was the study in 2010. And this is how I ended up writing the book too. In
Mm.
2010, there was a study from the CDC, and I finally say that's when the CDC was telling the truth.
Mm.
They had blood workup and urine workup on 2,500 people across the United States, not in one city, across the United States. And
Mhm.
all of those people that were tested for 28 or 26 chemicals that were
Mm.
found in the environment that were not they were man-made, and they were in the blood and urine. So I'm going like, wow, no wonder people are sick.
Yeah.
No wonder people like, they're like they go along and they don't realize that what those chemicals are doing, causing cancer, causing inflammation, causing digestive issues. Because if you're not able to absorb what you eat, it's not what you are not what you eat. It's how that line go. You are what you eat is not how it goes. It actually should be you are what you have the ability to absorb. So
Digest,
if you
yeah.
have and so if you have
Understood.
leaky gut, or some other, metabolic problem, and all those toxins are going out before the cofactors and enzymes are able to break them down correctly and then get
Mhm.
absorbed, then it goes to the liver and it stresses it out. The liver tries to get rid of those toxins. That's a job of the liver. That's one of the jobs. And they dump those toxins back into your intestinal tract, or if the molecule is small enough, they'll go to the kidney, to the bladder, and then all supposed to end up in the toilet. But
Mhm.
if there's a faulty mechanism or you have injury in your intestinal tract, those toxins get absorbed back into the system to go back to the liver to do it again, and do it again, and do it again until it becomes overwhelmed. And when the liver becomes overwhelmed and doesn't know what to do with it, going like, "Oh my God, I'm running out of options here," you
Yeah.
know, then what it does is it stores it in blood, brain, bone, and fat.
Mm.
So where are most of the, when people talk about having cancers and having Alzheimer's, where are those places in the body are the biggest fatty tissues? In the body, it's liver, it's kidneys. It's like because you have that internal VAT fat, it's, the prostate, it's all the sexual organs, it's the breast,
Mhm.
and so it's, drinking. I mean, a year ago, funny, quick example, it wasn't funny, but I was in Maryland on Kent Island, and I was going into a Safeway or whatever it was there, and they had bottled water like on pallets. There was about 8 of them in front of the store, soaking in the sunshine.
No.
I was like, "Oh my God." I go, "They're killing people." It's the first thing I thought of, and I went and found the manager in the store. I said, "You gotta move those. How long have
Yeah.
they been there?" You know? And he goes, "Well, we're having a sale. There's no room in the store." And I said, "So you're killing people instead?" I said, "All the plastic leaches out at high temperatures. That's the problem with plastic, especially that little triangle on the bottom, has
Mhm.
numbers in it. And so, the plastic leaches out into the water, and then you drink it. It never leaves your body, and it's an endocrine disruptor, either for testosterone. So men want to know why they don't have sex drive anymore. Stop drinking out of plastic bottles.
Mhm.
And in women, because those disruptors for hormones are huge, and it's hard to correct that.
Yeah.
So that's why food is medicine.
So, Dr. Pratt, I'm so curious. You've got this amazing book, Sick, Fat, and Tired. So, what is there a step-by-step approach that you use with each client? Like step 1, we look at this, step 2, when you're working with a client, can you share a little bit about that?
Well, in lifestyle medicine and also in functional medicine, no two people are alike.
Mhm.
So my approach is to find out where somebody's at, and like because everyone's different, even within the same family.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so it's like find out where they're at, where they want to go. And then I ask them what they're driving for a car, if it's a
Mhm.
jalopy, if it's a Mustang, or they want to drive a Ferrari, or whether their most favorite car is. If money was not an issue, what car would you be driving?
Mhm.
I always say a Ferrari because I like to drive fast. So but it doesn't matter. But the point
Yeah.
is that when you get in that car, you better know how to drive the car. I
Mhm.
actually drove a Ferrari one time totally and I haven't been one since then, nor has anybody ever asked me if I wanted to drive their Ferrari after I tell them the story, is because I got in this guy's Ferrari. We're driving in Sussex, England, and we're starting to go around a curve. And he just presumed that I knew that the brakes were on the steering wheel, on the paddles. And then I just said to him, I'm thinking, I just let my foot off the gas pedal, and then without looking at, next to it, because the car was already running when I got in, and there wasn't a pedal on the floor. And I was
Ah!
going, "Oh my God." And I said, "How do you stop this car anyway?" And he goes, "You got to use the brake pedal." And we were starting to go around a curve, and I wasn't going 80 miles an hour or even 50. It's
Oh
kind of
goodness.
going like 25, 30, because we're in residential. And he goes, "It's on the paddle. It's the top part of the paddle." How am I supposed to know that, if I never drove that kind of car before? And
Right.
so I hit the brake pedal on the right, which locked the brake on the right, which made the car pivot
Oh
around it, and I hit
no.
a curb. And when I hit the curb, I took out from the backside driver's panel, like didn't touch that, but the whole back side of the panel, it was like this huge scratch
Oh,
and
no.
dent and crease in it. And the first thing I said is, I can't afford to fix your car. I can't afford to pay for it, you know. And 'cause I took money, I was investing in going back to get my secondary doctorate degree in acupuncture at the time in Oriental medicine. And I was horrified,
Mm,
which taught me the lesson that is that a lot of people don't know what they're driving. They're just going through life and going through motions,
mm,
but before, if you want to like not put the cart before the horse, you got to put the cart and the horse together correctly so that when you do that and you attach them and you get in the driver's seat, the horse responds to your commands.
yeah.
That's the mindset, the mind over matter. And and that you're starting to move in a way that you're like is congruent with your environment, and with,
Mhm.
everything around you, your environment, with your family, the things that you want to have and your goals that you want to have in life, because you're not going to get those, unless have your health. Health is essential. It's absolutely necessary for everything. You know, and the mind's gotta
Mhm.
be, hanging out with it. The mind, I always say, they hang out together. They're a good company as long as we treat them well,
Yes. Well, and you're not
right?
battling, right? How
Right.
can you, if the mindset, if the mind is not aligned with the path that you wanna go for your health, you're gonna have a very difficult time getting there, right?
Oh, for sure,
Um,
and you keep on
mhm.
going. Take 1 step forward and 3 steps back, and you have to know
Yes.
what basics are. That's why some blood work, I don't order blood work when I first talk with somebody, but I first do my questionnaire, which is a science-based questionnaire that was
Mhm.
developed by, science engineers in, functional medicine,
Mhm.
um, long time ago, and then, and by using that, it gives people paper in hand. People like paper, especially if they're old-fashioned like I am. Um, and and so that when you put the pieces of the puzzle, you have to understand what you got to work with.
Mhm.
Because, when you go to get in the car and you're looking at your gas tank, and, oh my God, I haven't put gas in the car in a month. Oh my God, I'm on empty. How far is that gas station? Because then
Mhm.
you're in crisis, right? You don't want to be in
Yeah.
crisis, and so, but if you pay attention to the signs and symptoms of your body, it's always very revealing and it doesn't lie.
Yeah.
It's just like, well, what does that mean? And what does that really go? Because you can have in differential diagnosis, you can have 20 things that say my eyesight gets fuzzy,
Mhm.
but then you have to continue going down, going, what else do I have? Signs and symptom of. Just because you have signs and symptoms and it says that you have, like stomach problems, let's say, then, or you're losing your sight, make it simple, you're losing your sight. Your sight loss might be related in Chinese medicine, the liver and the kidneys helps function
Mhm.
and influences your eyesight. It influences your hair and your teeth, and influence ringing in your ears. Like if you have ringing in your ears, for instance,
Mm.
sometimes that's just as simple as you're iron deficient, but other times there's other things going on that, support that ringing in the ears, and you got to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
And if you pay attention to those things as they happen, then you have a lot more flexibility adapting as opposed to being the result of a disaster or a crisis.
Yeah. I love what you're saying here that I often refer to the body as a vehicle as well and talk about
Oh,
the rusting process that's happening,
mhm,
from free radical damage and how are you thinking about your cells today, right? Not yourselves,
mhm,
your cells, right?
mhm,
But I'd love to know, we started this conversation talking about doing what it takes to be healthy. Was there ever a
mhm.
time in your life, Dr. Pat, where your health slipped, and how did you get back on track to do what it takes to be healthy?
Well, I had someone talk me into going having a colonoscopy as a
Mm,
baseline study. And when they did, what they didn't know is whether right from the small intestine going to the large intestine, there's an area there, and it's called the cecum, which doesn't make it makes sense to me. But what it was is that there was a little bit of it seemed to be collapsed. So they didn't know if it was, a normal variant for me or if it meant something else. And if it meant something else, then they wanted me to go see the OBGYN people, which
Mm,
then wanted me to go have an ultrasound. So when I
mm,
went to go have an ultrasound, they didn't see anything on the ultrasound, but they still thought it was a really good idea to do a DNC. And so when
mm,
I went to go do the DNC, the doctor ran out of time. So she didn't have time to really, put the scope in and look around to see if there was something else in the uterus,
mm,
you know? And so, because there was the next person who needed to get into surgery, I was like livid.
mm,
And so then, it's just like, and I had to wait 6 months, and she goes, you could do nothing, you could do this, you could do this. But they always start off that list, you could have cancer. It's the first thing they say. That's dropping the seed of thought,
yeah.
and I reject that mental capacity. Excuse me. I reject that. When she said that, I went, "Are you gotta be kidding me?" I mean, do
Mhm,
I look like I have the face of somebody who has, like, cancer? And because you can for ovarian cancer, there's a very specific look. My regular OBGYN, who retired by that point in time, um, just said to me, one time I said, "'Cause unexplained shoulder pain can relate to ovarian cancer. It's a
mm,
referral point for ovarian cancer." So I went,
interesting.
I've got this unexplained shoulder pain, like, I don't know where it's from." And she goes, "Peace of mind is everything." She was so cool. I loved her. Her
Mm,
name was B. Petrus. And
yeah,
so, she was so or Doctor Pitcher. Anyway, she was so I sent her all my patients, all my female patients. I said, "You need to go see her." Because
mhm,
she just was so down to earth in her thinking. So she said, "Let's go. I'm gonna send you across the street right now." I didn't have to wait for 5 weeks, to
mm,
go do it. She goes, "Go across the street right now. I'll call them up and they can do a quick ultrasound." And the guy said, "I don't know why you have pelvic pain." I'm thinking, "Oh, is that what she wrote down?" And so, but it was great because, I got my answer then because she believed peace of mind was essential to be able
mm,
to have health and to be able to keep on going. So
mhm,
then when this happened, and I scheduled this again, the doctor said, he didn't do a scope, but then he thought he might have perforated the uterus because if he would have done the scope, he wouldn't have perforated the uterus, or thought
mm,
that he did. So I had to go and do an ultrasound anyway.
wow.
And I said, this is a comedy of errors. I mean, you've got to be kidding me. Your right side and left side are not equaling one another. And I go, and I'm only signing on if you do the program the way that you're telling me you're going to do the program because I'm going to be
Mhm,
out you know? And so if I'm gonna be out, I go, "Who speaks for me?" And because you can't make my decisions for me. So then
yeah.
you change the protocol. So then I wrote an article about the sick model of medicine.
Mm,
And I had, disagreements with them. I said, "Why did you have to do 2 ultrasounds? If the first ultrasound didn't show or showed something I could understand that's external, why you would do an internal one? But I don't understand why you would do an internal one because it would show the same thing as the other one, right?" And they're all looking at me
mhm,
going like, "Well, yeah." And I said, "So you just to make money?" But
mhm,
people don't know how to ask those questions. So when I'm advocating for somebody and someone's going to go do something, I give them a whole list. So
awesome.
that scare for me, I just went like, that's when I said, whatever I did to get where I got is a reason why I did to get where I got. And I go, and the reason why I'm so healthy. I had arthroscopic knee surgery,
Mm,
which I now look back and still consider it somewhat of a mistake. But it's the only 2 times in my life that I had antibiotics. Because even when they did
wow,
the DNC, I didn't take antibiotics. I said,
wow,
I don't want them. I said, if I start getting the fever, I'll be the first person in line. But until then, I said, I'm going to let my body do it. And I just took extra supplementation to improve my immune
mm,
system and to be
mm,
able to handle that. But I kept an eye on it. It isn't like I just like, I'm not doing it. It's
yeah,
just like you've got to, you have to have a reasonable part where you from Western medicine into alternative medicine that it makes sense that you don't, aren't being like making stupid decisions like, oh, I'm only doing alternative medicine.
right,
Sometimes you got to like intervene and do something in Western medicine in order to get you from point A to point Z,
mhm,
and the fastest method. And then you kind of go like, well, what can I do to supplement this so I can get back on track? But I've only had
mhm,
antibiotics in my life maybe like 3 times,
it's
and I
amazing.
don't take I don't take any medications, and I'm in my middle 60s.
Awesome,
Um,
awesome.
yeah, and it's just like, but you have to, I always think if I'm your leader, if I'm lead, I need to
Mhm,
lead by example. So if
yeah,
I tell you, don't do that, and I turn around on my back and do it, then I'm lying.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
lying
I
to
feel
whoever
the
my
same way.
physician was, and, it's just like, so I don't do that. If somebody asks me a question and I don't know the answer, I will tell you I don't know the answer, and I'll go
Mhm.
research it out so that you have the best information possible, and you can have a checklist, so that when you're making decisions about your health and your well-being and moving forward, you can make them from a standpoint of being educated. You know,
I love that.
and then you can get the answers that you need. Sometimes I've called up doctors for people because, I go, "Why?" I go, "He intimidated you? What's his
Mm.
name? Let's go call him right now." And so it's a lot of times I said, "I have a patient, here, or I have a client here," because I don't see patients anymore, and
Mhm.
unless I visit them in person, or if I'm doing a VIP type
Mm.
thing where I go into someone's house, and we're looking at what are toxic things in your environment that are
Mm.
possibly making you sick.
Right.
Um, and so, it's doing those things that make sense when it's
Mhm.
time to do them, not because it's something to do.
Yeah.
And it's and I look at working with people I'm very left brain. And so, like, sometimes people are like, I'm like way too left brain sometimes, but I have that creative side and I have that intuitive side. I had
Mhm.
a client that I was standing in a Starbucks parking lot in Atlanta, Georgia, when I was driving down. We met, and he said, "Man, I'm just having a lot of problems with my shoulder," And he goes, "And you're just shoulder queen, so can you just, like, out in the parking lot, can you do something about it?" I said,
Fix
"Probably
me.
not, but I'll tell you what if something's going on there." I said, "You don't
Mhm.
have a problem with your shoulder, you got a problem with your lung."
Mm.
And 2 days after that, he was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer in that
Mm.
spot.
Wow.
And s
Wow.
and so it's just, it's just paying attention, and, for me, and when I went, because I did, chiropractic sports, chiropractic PT, and then I went to acupuncture, and acupuncture was just the icing on the cake,
Beautiful.
for putting them in, like, in another tool to use. 'Cause I always
Mhm.
thought if everything goes to hell in a handbasket, I've got 2 great tools that can help people survive.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
it's like, and surviving, and you don't wanna just survive, you wanna thrive. There's a huge
Yes.
difference between just surviving and the mentality, the mindset mentality around that.
Yeah.
It's
It's
just like,
really
"Oh, my family has that." Well, if you keep on eating exactly how your family has, and plus the quality of food has diminished over years,
mm.
then you're probably gonna have the same diseases as your parents did. The only way
Yeah.
you change your constitution is changed by what you put in your mouth and the quality of what you put in your mouth.
Yes. Dr.
It
Pat, I think we could talk all day. I agree with so much of what you're saying here. And I'd love to know, as we wrap up our conversation today, your website is healthteamnetwork.com,
Mhm.
healthteamnetwork.com. Is that where people can get your book, or is there a different place that they should go buy your book?
Well, they can get my book there. It links them to Amazon.
Oh, perfect.
For one thing, there's a way that on that website that products I endorse,
Mm.
so like drinking water, so you're, and, and feasible things that are not like,
Awesome.
thousands and thousands of dollars, so
Mm.
um, I can take on there in the product page, and on the bottom of the product page is a free gift. So make sure that you
Ah,
visit that page and look at the things that are on there. And there's always tons of places all over the website that you can make time with me. On the first page, there's a microphone. If you scroll down, there's a microphone, and on that microphone, you can ask me a question. It will actually record your question and send it to me,
very
and then
cool.
I'm able to answer you, like, straight away, straight back. Um, and so that's one really good way. If you're on LinkedIn, it's a perfect way to get a hold of me. I have a significant profile, and what someone told me with pedigree, and never thought about it that way before, but I went, okay. And so, feel free to visit me there. I have a business site on, Facebook and Instagram. I'm on Instagram also, but I
Mm.
primarily sit and work on off of LinkedIn for B2B and B2C.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, Dr. Pat, it was so lovely chatting with you today and hearing your incredible wisdom and insight and awesome stories. And thank you so much. It was awesome.
You're welcome. Thank you. It's
Mhm.
my pleasure. I love to help
And
people.
I can tell. I can tell it's real. And for all of those listeners today, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Power to the People Pleasers. Have a great day.